What comes to your mind when you hear the word economy? Most people think about money or wealth or things that affect their money or wealth, like inflation. But for the most part, people think about financial systems, something that is intricate and has multiple different facets to it. But economy, if we're solely looking at the word economy and its meaning, it's simply a system that is set in place for producing and allocating a resource. This could be anything really, but in modern terms, that resource is traditionally money and the different things that money is contingent on. But today I'm going to talk about a different economy, one where the scarce resource that is being created, exchanged, and allocated is not money. The resource that fuels this economy is pure human attention. And I'm going to explain to you why and how this attention economy is slowly harvesting your mind. And I could even argue that this specific economy determines how other economies function. Now, before I tell you it's over and we're all just completely cooked, I want to break down how we got here. Why is the attention economy so prevalent? And what are the byproducts of it? I want you to envision a flea market. People have their pop-up shops everywhere and they have their products that they are selling you front and center. You come to them and see what they're selling and you decide, hey, that's pretty cool. I'd like to buy that from you. Now, obviously you pay them with money. You receive whatever the product is, but you've actually paid twice. You paid attention to them first and then you paid for their product. Every time you open TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, you are entering one of the largest advertising flea markets in human history. Digital advertising revenue in the US alone reached nearly $300 billion last year, which was the highest ever recorded. Meta alone generated about $196 billion last year, which is overwhelmingly how the company makes most of its money compared to other metrics. And if we look at these numbers globally, in 2026, total ad revenue has been predicted to reach $1.3 trillion worldwide. And that is an 8.9% growth from last year. And with all that being said, it is clear that human attention is the most valuable resource on Earth. So if it's making over $1 trillion per year, the next step is to figure out how to produce more of that resource. How can you farm more attention? Now, I'm not going to sit here and just dog on short form content because I truly believe that it was a byproduct of something bigger, and I'll get to that in a second. I think short form content is kind of necessary, like the yin and the yang. You can't truly appreciate the daytime if nighttime never comes, you know what I'm saying? But if we take a step back, and I mean way back, before social media, before smartphones, back when most of the internet consisted of forums and long-term content, we can even take it further back to before the internet or even before television existed. Throughout human history, we have been continuously trying to solve the problem that was communication. How can we get information from one person to another faster? Thousands of years ago, if someone died, then their information went with them, unless they told someone. Then came out books, which was insane. Honestly, when the first written book came out, that had to be like camera phones in the early 2000s for them. People don't realize how cracked the invention of the book was. Then we shifted to the printing press, and now we're getting news out to multiple people on a way bigger scale. Then obviously the telephone, and then television, and then the internet, and then smartphones. But one thing that needs to be pointed out is the dilation of time between these major innovations. The printing press came in the 1400s, and over 400 years later, the telephone was invented. If we compare that to now, the internet was available to the public in roughly 1993, and in just 14 years we had the iPhone. What I'm saying is that over the course of human history, things have gotten faster. Our technology is advancing exponentially, and as a result, information has been spread at an incredible rate. For a long time, experience compounded because the world was relatively familiar. I just think that it's safe to assume that for a decent amount of human history, technology has advanced at a rate where things like culture and habits reflected those advancements and had time to adapt. My point here is that with this rapid increase in technology and information, there is an undeniable byproduct, which is instant gratification. And we've always had short form content. It has always existed. We've always had short stories. We've always had mini games and ads. Our grandparents used to read the newspaper every morning and do one of those crossword puzzles. It's always been a thing. But I think the major turning point specifically with the smartphone is that it takes away the time in between. It takes away the time between meetings, the break from life you get when you go to the bathroom, when you're in the elevator, or just laying in your bed. It takes away that time. It fills those gaps in our day. And the brain has a limited capacity. And while everyone is not the same, everyone has a capacity. We cannot deeply evaluate every stimulus that we receive. Our brains are constantly being flooded with millions of different types of sensory data every second, and that's outside of doom scrolling. So to prevent complete sensory overload, the brain has to filter things out. And in a lot of cases, the filtration process is very aggressive. So when we take today's media environment, the brain filter requirements can shift depending on how much you've been exposed to this sensory overload, especially when you're young and your mind is still developing. A 2025 meta-analysis study examined the combined results from 71 studies involving nearly 100,000 participants. This study looked at the effects of short-form videos, or SFVs, on cognitive performance, specifically attention, inhibitory control, which is basically your ability to resist impulse, and anxiety. And they found that attention and inhibitory control were affected the most. A common criticism that floats around is that it's not the short-term content's fault. Maybe people with poor attention just doom scroll more, which is fair to say. I mean, which came first? One 2025 study found that repeatedly consuming short-term videos impaired participants' ability to organize and remember continuous information, especially when it's compared with other continuous information. Basically saying that if your brain spends hours every day practicing rapid content switching, it may become less efficient at the kind of sustained attention that reading books or following complex arguments requires. And even then, that doesn't prove permanent attention damage, but it does suggest that short-term format can affect cognition in the short term. And one thing that I want to mention, which I rarely hear getting brought to this conversation, is the fact that, like basically everything else in life, attention exists on a spectrum. There are many different scientifically defined categories of attention. There's sustained attention. Can you stay focused for a long time? Selective attention. Can you ignore distractions? Executive control. Can you stay on topic? When someone is trying to pivot to another conversation, can you stay on topic? There's working memory. How good are you at retaining information in your mind? I think a lot of people have a very surface level understanding of what an attention span is, when in reality it is a vast umbrella term. And in this attention economy, the main goal is using this sustained attention to generate revenue, to make profit. But how do you know what content works the best? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you N.E.R.P. Novelty, emotional intensity, reward frequency, and personalization. These boys don't miss. I'm going to break this down using two separate examples. Let's look at a philosophy lecture, probably around 2 hours long, and then let's apply the N.E.R.P formula to that. If we're looking at the novelty being how quickly the content presents something new, it'd be safe to say that the score for a philosophy lecture would be pretty low. Now, if you look at emotional intensity, a philosophy lecture doesn't really invoke many emotions unless you are actually very interested in that subject matter. If we look at reward frequency, that being how often the content gives the viewer a payout. This could be something like a new fact or a reveal or like a visual change. We could say the same thing, probably pretty low in this example. And if we look at personalization being how accurately the algorithm predicts what you'll enjoy, I could say that this is fairly moderate because philosophy is a niche just like any other. Now let's look at two factors that determine the overall sustained attention, which are friction and cognitive load. Friction being how much effort it takes to consume the content, and cognitive load being how much thinking is required. So a philosophy lecture in this case would have high friction because you have to sit down and focus on a nuanced topic for a couple hours, maybe even take notes and raise your hand and ask questions here and there. And cognitive load is also high because it's philosophy. A lot of thinking is required for that subject. So if we take N.E.R.P and divide it by the friction and cognitive load, and all these are subjective numbers. You can put these on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 20. But if we divide N.E.R.P by FC being friction and cognitive load, we get sustained attention, and I'm not calling it SA. Now, if we take our sustained attention and multiply that by time, which is basically how much time a person has in their day. This can differ from person to person. Some people work, some people don't. Some people have insomnia, some people sleep all day. But if we take this time and multiply it by sustained attention, we get the moneymaker, which is value. So with all this being said, we can suggest that value or the ability to make profit increases as N.E.R.P increases and FC decreases. Meaning, if the user is doing as little as possible, physically and intellectually, you will potentially make more money. Now let's say there's a 30-second clip of someone just getting knocked the fuck out outside of a Houston bar. If we look at the novelty, again, being how fast something new is presented, I'd score that pretty high because the first second you're watching two people in each other's face, and 10 seconds later, someone's getting thrown over a shoulder with their legs in the air. I'd also score emotional intensity high because it can make you laugh if the guy starts twitching after getting slammed. You might feel kind of sad, or you might be mad. There's a wide variety of emotions to be felt seeing something like that. The personalization can be pretty high because this is more of a feeler content. There's so many different emotions that you can get from this type of content that it would be pushed out to so many different people. Even if you don't watch fights, you can't tell me that you don't get the occasional fight video in your algorithm out of nowhere. If we look at the friction and cognitive load of this clip, they are both extremely low. All you had to do was swipe your phone to see it, and you didn't have to think that much or understand anything. Two guys are arguing, one gets slept. That's kind of it. This type of content runs rampant in the attention economy. I also believe that this creates a feedback loop. Every interaction strengthens a habit, and habits are not inherently bad. They are good and bad habits. The simple fact is, the more engaged you are with something and the more engaging that something is designed to be, the more likely you are to return to that thing. And what happens when your dopamine system gets rewired to require this reward over and over again? Well, things that you naturally get dopamine from can very quickly end up getting replaced by instant gratification. A study of 476 adults found that greater time spent watching short form videos was associated with fewer daily steps and less physical activity. The only outliers really were people whose algorithms already consisted of exercise related short form videos, which, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. But to that point, there has also been research in the other direction, with studies showing that people who exercise and doom scroll have more self-control on average than people who don't exercise and doom scroll. But the attention economy doesn't care. As long as you're paying attention, you could sit on your ass all day and doom scroll, or you could be the most outdoors Coyote Peterson, Steve Irwin type motherfucker ever. As long as you're coming back and giving your attention, it doesn't care. Because the attention economy inadvertently thrives off of the oldest human indulgence in the book, which is convenience. Most people don't want to put in the effort when there's an easier way. If you're bored, the most convenient way to get rid of boredom in 2026 is to pick up your phone. If you're confused, most people just use Google now, which is just AI. If a video isn't captivating in the first 3 seconds, you swipe. It's the easiest thing. And it's taken off years of our lives. Humanity spent thousands of years inventing technology to eliminate unnecessary struggle. But struggle is also one of the mechanisms through which human beings develop. So what struggle needs to be overcome, and what struggle is necessary? I also believe that short-term content is a result of this convenience trap that so many of us have fallen victim to. I mean, can we really blame the companies for taking advantage and capitalizing? Like, we blame the cartel for flooding America with drugs, but some could argue that if America wasn't so addicted, we wouldn't be their #1 customers. Like, they wouldn't be selling that shit here if we weren't so addicted. So it's like, who's really to blame here? We can point fingers at capitalism, but like I said before, there are so many facets to this issue. I don't think there is any one aspect that we can 100% put the blame on. There is a quote from the author Johann Hari from his book titled Stolen Focus, where he writes, "If you spend your time switching a lot, then the evidence suggests you will be slower. You'll make more mistakes, you'll be less creative, and you'll remember less of what you do." For someone whose business model is centered around ad revenue, that is music to their ears. And with how cognitively impairing this content can be, it can easily be used for psychological warfare. So how do you beat this attention economy? You could tell yourself, I'll just scroll less, but unless you replace scrolling with something else, you won't really be fixing anything. I think the most important thing to do is to reintroduce friction and cognitive ability into your life. I'm not necessarily saying go make your life harder. I'm just saying enjoy the challenge of figuring things out. Don't eliminate every empty moment. Embrace boredom. If you need to take a shit, go take a shit, bro. You don't need IG reels while your legs go numb from sitting on the toilet. Go for a walk occasionally, join a run club. You just have to stop associating boredom with wasted time, because if you associate being understimulated with boredom, then you choose overstimulation and your brain has no time to chill. Like, ever. Use boredom to increase your sustained attention. Sit down and write. It could be literally anything. Sit down and set a timer for 20 minutes. Turn off your notifications. Flip your phone over so you can't see the screen. Read something. Write something. Go dust off your guitar and practice. Do that for 20 minutes a day and gradually increase that time. It's a skill just like everything else. If you don't ever run, like you haven't ran a mile since the pacer test in high school, if you try to run a mile today and it's just agonizing, you wouldn't conclude that humans aren't meant to run. You're just untrained. The same goes for your attention. Attention is a skill that we train through habits and practice. If you're interested in something, look it up. Research it. Go to Google Scholar and find articles on it. Consume information deliberately. The algorithm is going to throw you things that it thinks you want to see, but it doesn't really know you. It's just predicting. You're predictable, bro. You're telegraphing your punches. But on a serious note, another distinction worth making is that you should be creating more than you are consuming. And this is one that I've struggled with as an artist, and now I guess as a content creator. It's very easy for you to obtain a reactive mindset from scrolling and shit. But if you create more, and I mean create more of anything, if you create more of anything than you consume anything, you start to adopt a proactive mindset where you're more conscious of what you're consuming because you value your creativity more. My YouTube algorithm shifted so hard when my nephew was on it, on my account, just watching whatever. He watches like Kai Cenat and Mr. Beast and shit, and not to say that they're bad, but for me, it generated a lot of high dopamine click farming content in my algorithm. And I made his own account, and then that's when I started getting my Nexpo and Tub like channel recommendations back. And it's pretty much that simple. The platforms and companies within this economy's incentives are not identical to yours. YouTube benefits from another hour of watch time, of course, but you might benefit more from just turning off your TV and going to sleep. And once you understand that, you can appreciate the algorithm a little bit more. You don't beat the attention economy by deleting social media and becoming a hermit. You beat it by realizing that your attention belongs to you and you alone, and you decide who you want to give it to. Once you realize the price of your attention and how valuable of a resource it is, it'll make things a lot easier. Thank you for watching till the end. I'll catch y'all later.